The incident report said 3 people vanished within 48 hours, but what bothered me was they were all logged in at the same trailhead kiosk at the exact same time. I work seasonal search and rescue out of a ranger station in northern Arizona, mostly routine stuff like lost hikers or twisted ankles. Nothing that sticks with you past a few days, but this one never left. It started with a call from dispatch about a parked truck near the Dry Mesa Trail. Engine cold, keys still inside, and a half-empty thermos on the passenger seat. That alone wasn't unusual. People leave vehicles all the time. But the logbook at the kiosk showed the owner, a guy named Eric Halverson, had signed out at 6:12 a.m. that morning, and right below his name were 2 more entries with the exact same timestamp, same pen pressure, same handwriting rhythm. 3 different names, but it looked like one person wrote all of them. I didn't notice that detail until later. At the time, I just hiked out with my partner Louise, following the standard grid pattern. The trail was dry, packed dirt, easy to track. About a mile in, we found Eric's footprints veering off the marked path. That happens. People chase shortcuts or get turned around. But what didn't sit right was the second set of prints joining his, about 20 yards off trail. They came from nowhere. No approach marks, just appeared beside his. Louise crouched down and pointed it out. "No. Lead in," he said. I remember nodding, pretending it made sense. We followed both sets uphill. About half a mile later, there was a third set. Same thing. No approach, just suddenly there. By then, the radio started acting up. Static bursts, short clicks, like someone keying in and out without speaking. I tried calling it in, but dispatch only caught fragments. "Repeat last," they kept saying, but I hadn't said anything yet. We pushed further. The terrain got rockier, patches of scrub brush, visibility dropping. Around noon, we found a backpack wedged between 2 boulders. It matched Eric's description. Inside was his phone, dead, a folded map, and a small digital recorder. That part wasn't in the report. We almost missed it. It was tucked in a side pocket. I pressed play out of habit. At first, it was just wind noise and footsteps. Then a voice, Eric's, I assume, talking to someone. "You said this way," he muttered. There was no reply, but he kept responding like there was. "No, that's not the trail. That's not." Then a second voice cut in, calm, steady. "You're already off the trail." It didn't sound threatening. That's what made it worse. It sounded official, like a ranger giving directions. I paused the recording and looked at Luis. He just shook his head. "Let's keep moving," he said. We logged a find and continued uphill. Around 2 p.m., the sky shifted. Clouds rolled in fast, cutting the light. Temperature dropped. Maybe 10 degrees in 15 minutes. Standard desert weather swing, but it felt off. The wind picked up, carrying this low hum I couldn't place. Not mechanical, not natural either, just constant. We reached a small clearing near a ridge, and that's where we found the second missing person, or what was left. Her name was listed as Dana Price in the logbook. She was sitting upright against a tree, eyes open, no visible injuries. Looked like she'd just stopped. No signs of struggle. No. Lewis checked for a pulse, even though we both knew. I scanned the area with her. Just those 3 sets of footprints converging here, then only 2 leaving. That's when the radio crackled again. This time a voice came through, clear as day. "Unit 12, you're past the boundary. Turn back." I froze. That was our call sign, but dispatch never uses that phrasing, and we hadn't crossed any marked boundary. Luis grabbed the radio. "Dispatch, confirm last transmission." Static. Then the same voice again. "You're not authorized beyond this point." It wasn't dispatch. It sounded like a ranger, but not one I recognized. There was no ID, no protocol. Just that calm, steady tone. Luis switched channels. Nothing but static. We decided to pull back with Dana's body and report in. Standard procedure when things get unclear. As we started descending, I noticed something odd. The footprints behind us were gone. Not covered, not disturbed, Just not there. Like we'd never walked that path. I stopped and turned around. The ground was smooth, untouched. Luis saw it too. Wind could have taken it, he said, but there was no dust movement, no sign of recent disturbance. We kept moving. About 20 minutes later, we reached the spot where we'd found Eric's backpack. It was gone. Same rocks, same position, but nothing there. No pack, no recorder, nothing. I checked my vest. The recorder was still in my pocket. I hadn't imagined it. We both knew that. The radio stayed silent after that. No more voices, no more static. Just dead air. We made it back to the trailhead just before dusk. Eric's truck was still there. Keys still in the ignition. Thermos still on the seat. But the logbook had changed. Louise flipped it open while I called it in. The entries were different. Eric's name was still there, same time, but the other two names were gone. In their place were two new entries. Same timestamp, same handwriting, but different names entirely. And at the bottom of the page, in smaller letters, was our call sign. Unit 12, 6:12 a.m. I checked my watch. It was 6:47 p.m. We hadn't been there that morning. We hadn't signed anything. Louise closed the book slowly. "We need to log this," he said. I nodded. But something felt wrong. If we logged it, it would become noticed. Something odd. The footprints behind us were gone. Not covered, not disturbed. Real. It would go into the system, and systems don't like things that don't add up. Over the next 2 days, we ran extended search patterns for Eric and the third person, whose name kept changing in the records. Sometimes it was listed as Mark Allison, sometimes Daniel Reyes, sometimes just blank. No consistent ID, no missing persons report matched. It was like he didn't exist outside that logbook. We never found them. No remains, no gear, nothing. Just that one backpack that disappeared and the recorder I kept. I turned it over to the station chief eventually. He listened to it once, then locked it in evidence. Said it was probably a prank, someone messing with us. But he didn't sound convinced. A week later, a maintenance crew reported a broken boundary marker near the ridge where we found Dana. It wasn't on any official map. Just a rusted signpost half buried in the dirt. No text, no symbols. Just a blank metal plate, like something had been removed. They replaced it with a standard marker, logged it, and moved on. Routine. But I went back there once, off-duty. I wanted to see it again. The clearing was empty. No sign of Dana, obviously, but also no sign we'd ever been there. No footprints, no disturbed soil, nothing. Just untouched ground. I checked the boundary marker. It was gone again. Not broken, not removed, just not there. And that hum, it was back. Low, constant, coming from somewhere I couldn't pinpoint. I didn't stay long. Back at the station, I checked the logbook one more time. The page with the 3 entries was still there, but now it only had one name, Eric Halverson. No trace of Dana, no trace of the third person. And no trace of us. Our call sign was gone, like we'd never been part of it. I asked Luis if he remembered signing anything that morning. He looked at me for a long second, then said, "We weren't even on shift that day." That's not true. I remember the call, I remember the hike, I remember the recorder. But the schedule board said we were off. The dispatch logs had no record of our call. No radio traffic, no GPS pings, nothing. Just a blank gap where that day should be. The only thing that still exists is that recorder, locked in evidence, and even that's been flagged for data inconsistency. I asked to hear it again last month. The chief hesitated, then played it. The wind, the footsteps, Eric's voice, all the same. But the second voice, it was different. Still calm, still steady, but now it said something new. "You signed in already. I don't remember hearing that before." And at the very end of the recording, just before it cuts out, there's a faint click, like a pen tapping on paper. Then, A whisper. Next. I haven't gone back to Dry Mesa since, but every now and then, I check the logbook when I'm on shift, just to be sure. And last night, I saw something I can't explain. At the bottom of a fresh page, in that same handwriting, same pressure, same rhythm, was a single entry. No name, just a time, 6:12 a.m. And underneath it, smaller, almost like an afterthought, was our call sign again. Unit 12. The radio call came in before sunrise, but the strange part was, it was coming from our own station, and we were all already inside. I was on overnight duty at a remote ranger outpost in western Montana, the kind of place where you might go a full shift without seeing another person, just logging weather data and answering the occasional emergency ping. Nothing unusual until that morning. At 5:18 a.m., the base radio lit up with an incoming transmission, tagged with our station ID, not dispatch, not a field unit, but us, broadcasting on a loop. I glanced over at my partner, Drew, who was pouring coffee. "You keying that?" I asked. He shook his head, already looking uneasy. The speaker crackled, then a voice came through, low and distorted, but clear enough to understand. "Station 4, respond. We have a hiker down near Cold Pine Ridge." I froze. That was our designation, and Cold Pine Ridge was about 6 miles northeast, steep terrain, not a casual hiking spot. Drew stepped closer to the console. "Dispatch, confirm source of last transmission," he said into the mic. Silence. Then the same voice repeated, identical in tone and timing. "Station 4, respond. We have a hiker down near Cold Pine Ridge." It wasn't a live call, it was a loop. But it was coming through our frequency, tagged with our internal ID. That's not something you can fake easily. We checked the system logs. No outgoing transmission had been sent from our unit. No scheduled broadcast. Nothing. Just that signal, repeating every 30 seconds. Protocol said we treat any distress call as real until proven otherwise. So we geared up and headed out. The sun was just starting to break over the ridge line, casting that flat gray light that makes everything look the same. We took the service trail part way, then cut east toward Cold Pine. The air was still. No wind, no birds. Just that quiet you only get before everything wakes up. About 2 miles in, the radio started picking up interference. Not static exactly. More like overlapping signals, fragments of voices cutting in and out. I caught pieces. "Don't go past." Then, "Not the right trail." Then silence. Drew tried switching channels, but it didn't help. Every frequency had the same bleed through, like something was broadcasting across the entire band. We kept moving. Around mile 4, we found the first sign of anything unusual. A campsite, unauthorized. No permit tag, no fire ring. Just a flattened patch of grass and a torn tarp caught on a branch. It looked recent, maybe a day old. There were footprints around it, but they didn't make sense. Some were deep, like someone running or carrying weight. Others were barely impressions at all, like they were trying not to be seen, and they all led in different directions. Drew crouched down, tracing one of the deeper prints. "Boot size 9, maybe 10, he said. "But look at this." He pointed to a second set, overlapping the first. Same size, same tread pattern, but the angle was off, like the same person had walked 2 different ways at once. I didn't have an answer for that. We logged the site and moved on. The terrain got steeper as we approached Cold Pine Ridge. Dense trees, uneven ground, limited visibility. That's when the radio call changed. It wasn't looping anymore. It was responding. "Station 4, we see you," the voice said. I stopped walking. Drew looked at me. "You hear that?" he asked. I nodded. The voice was clearer now, less distorted. Still unfamiliar, but calm, controlled. "You're off the marked trail," it continued. "Turn back." Drew keyed the mic. "Identify yourself," he said. No response, just a soft click, like the mic being released. We pushed forward anyway. If someone was injured, we couldn't just walk away. About half a mile from the ridge, we found a backpack hanging from a low branch. Zipper open, contents spilled out below. Water bottle, flashlight, a folded map. I picked up the map. It was one of ours, issued at the station, but it had markings on it that didn't match any official trail. Red lines drawn in sharp angles, cutting through restricted areas, looping back on themselves. And in the corner, written in pen, was a time. 5:18 a.m., the same time the radio call started. Drew scanned the area. No blood, he said. No drag. Marks. Just dropped. I looked up at the trees. Something felt off. The branches were too still, like the air wasn't moving at all. Then I saw it. About 20 yards ahead, partially hidden behind a trunk, was a figure, standing still, watching us. "Hey!" I called out. No movement. Drew raised his hand, signaling caution. We approached slowly. As we got closer, the figure stepped back, just out of view. We rounded the tree. Nothing there. No footprints, no broken branches, nothing. Just empty forest. Drew muttered something under his breath. We both felt it now. That sense of being watched, not from one direction, but from all around. The radio crackled again. "You missed the turn," the voice said. It sounded closer this time. Not through the speaker, but in the air. Drew spun around. "Where are you?" he shouted. No answer. Just that same soft click. We reached the ridge around 7:10 a.m. The view opened up, giving us a clear line of sight down into the valley. And that's where we saw the body, lying face down near a cluster of rocks, about 50 yards off the main trail. We moved quickly, closing the distance. As we got closer, I noticed something strange. The body was positioned like it had been placed there. Arms at the sides, legs straight. No signs of a fall or struggle. Drew checked for a pulse. Nothing. I knelt down and looked at the face. It was a man, mid-30s maybe. No visible injuries. Eyes closed. Peaceful, almost. Too peaceful. I scanned the area. No sign of how he got there. No tracks leading in or out. Just undisturbed ground. Drew stood up slowly. "We need to call this in," he said. I reached for the radio. Before I could speak, it activated on its own. "Station 4, status update," the voice said. I froze. That wasn't how our radios worked. You had to press the button. There was no auto-transmit. Drew looked at me. "Don't answer," he whispered. The radio clicked again. "You found him," the voice said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Who is this?" I said, ignoring Drew. Silence. Then, "You're not supposed to be here yet." Drew grabbed my arm. "We're leaving," he said. "Now." We didn't argue. We marked the location, took photos, and started heading back. As we moved away from the ridge, I kept glancing over my shoulder. I could have sworn the body had shifted, just slightly. Like the head had turned a few degrees, but every time I looked directly, it was still. About 10 minutes into the descent, we heard footsteps behind us. Not echoes, not ours, but separate, matching our pace. We stopped. The sound stopped. We moved again. It followed. Drew turned suddenly, scanning the trees. Nothing visible, but the feeling was unmistakable. Someone was there. Close. The radio stayed silent the rest of the way back. No more voices, no more interference. Just dead air. When we reached the station, everything looked normal. Too normal. The coffee pot was still warm, the logbook was open on the desk, and the radio console was quiet. We checked the system logs again. No record of the incoming transmission. No outgoing calls. No anomalies. Just a standard overnight report. Drew flipped open the logbook. There was an entry we hadn't written. 5:18 a.m. Responded to Cold Pine Ridge call. 1 DOA. Returned to station. It was signed with our names. Both of them. I felt my stomach drop. "We didn't write that," I said. Drew didn't respond. He was staring at the timestamp. We got back at 8:02, he said. This says 6:03. I checked the wall clock. 6:07 a.m. That didn't make sense. We'd been out there for hours. The sun had fully risen. But the Times said otherwise. We reported the incident to the regional office. They sent a team out to recover the body. But when they reached the ridge, there was nothing there. No body, no backpack, no campsite, no footprints, just untouched terrain, like no one had ever been there. They ran a full sweep. Nothing. No missing person matched the description. No reports filed. It was like the man didn't exist. The only evidence we had were the photos on my phone, but when I checked them later, they were corrupted. Files unreadable. Drew transferred his copies. Same result. The only thing that remained was that logbook entry, and even that changed. A week later I checked it again. The entry was still there, but the wording was different. 5:18 a.m., False Toll. No response needed. Our names were still signed at the bottom, in our handwriting. I don't remember writing it. Drew doesn't either. We don't talk about it much now. Just another incident filed away, another thing that doesn't quite make sense. But every now and then, when I'm on overnight duty, the radio will flicker for a second. Just a brief pulse of static. And if I'm close enough, I can hear it. That same voice. Calm, steady. Station 4, respond. And last night, for the first time since it happened, I heard something new. Right after the call, just before the signal cut out, there was a second voice. Fainter. Almost like it was further away. It sounded like Drew. And he was saying, "We're already here." The car had been parked at the overlook for 3 days, but the ticket on the windshield said it had just arrived an hour ago. I was on late patrol along the coastal highway in Oregon, the kind of shift where you mostly deal with broken-down vehicles and the occasional reckless driver. Nothing serious, until dispatch flagged an abandoned sedan near mile marker 27, engine off, lights dead, sitting perfectly within the lines like someone had planned to leave it there. When I pulled up, the ocean was barely visible through the fog, just a dull gray mass moving in the distance, and the wind carried that constant low roar that makes it hard to hear anything else. I checked the plate. It came back to a woman named Claire Donnelly, reported missing 2 days earlier from a town about 40 miles inland. That was the first thing that didn't line up. If the car had been sitting here for days, someone would have reported it sooner. This overlook wasn't exactly hidden. It got steady traffic, especially during sunset hours. But the ticket on the windshield, printed by our own department, showed a timestamp from 6:42 p.m. that evening. I looked at my watch. It was 9:15 p.m. I hadn't seen any call come through about issuing a ticket. I radioed it in. Dispatch confirmed last unit to tag vehicle at mile 27. There was a pause. Then, no units assigned to that location today. I stepped closer to the car. The windows were fogged. From the inside, which didn't make sense because the engine was cold and the temperature outside was dropping fast. I wiped the patch clear with my sleeve and looked in. The seats were empty, but the driver's side was pushed all the way back, like someone taller had been sitting there. Claire's DMV photo showed her at about 5'4". This seat position wouldn't fit her comfortably. I opened the door. The interior smelled stale, not like a car that had been driven recently. More like something closed up for a while. There was a purse on the passenger seat, unzipped, contents partially spilled, wallet, keys, a small notebook. I flipped through it. Most of the pages were blank, but near the back, there were a few entries. Dates, times, and locations, all along this same stretch of highway, repeated over several days. The last entry read, 6:42 p.m. He parked next to me again. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. I scanned the overlook. There were no other cars, just mine and hers. The fog had thickened, reducing visibility to maybe 30 yards. I walked the perimeter, checking for footprints or signs of struggle, but the ground was mostly gravel, hard to read. Still, I noticed something odd near the edge of the overlook. A second set of tire marks, fresh, overlapping Claire's, but angled slightly off, like another vehicle had pulled in close beside hers, then backed out quickly. I radioed it in, but the signal was weak. The cliffs in that area always messed with reception. Dispatch only caught parts of what I said. Second vehicle. Then static. I tried again. Nothing. Just a faint hum on the line, like interference. I went back to the car and checked the glove compartment. Registration matched Claire. Insurance current. Nothing unusual. But when I closed it, I noticed the rear view mirror had been adjusted all the way downward, pointing directly at the back seat. I leaned in and followed the angle. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, in the dim light, I noticed a small indentation in the upholstery, like someone had been sitting there recently. The fabric was slightly compressed, not fully screwed back. I stepped back, suddenly aware of how quiet it had gotten. Even the ocean seemed muted. That's when I heard it. A soft click, like a car door closing somewhere nearby. I turned toward the sound, but the fog swallowed everything. "Hello?" I called out. No response, just the wind picking up again. I moved toward the edge of the overlook, where the tire marks had been. The gravel shifted under my boots, crunching louder than it should have. About 10 feet from the edge, I saw something on the ground. A second parking ticket. Same format as the one on Claire's windshield, same timestamp. 6:42 p.m. But this one had a different plate number. I picked it up and read it. The plate matched my patrol car. I felt my stomach drop. I checked my vehicle. No ticket on the windshield. I hadn't issued one, and no one else had been out here tonight. I radioed dispatch again, this time more urgently. "Dispatch, I need confirmation on any units near mile 27. Anyone?" Silence. Then a burst of static, followed by a voice. "Unit 6, you're not alone out there." I froze. That wasn't standard protocol. Dispatch doesn't speak like that. "Identify," I said. No response, just that same faint hum. I turned slowly, scanning the overlook. The fog shifted slightly, just enough to reveal the outline of another car about 20 yards away. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of that. It was parked parallel to Claire's, facing the opposite direction. No lights, no movement. I approached cautiously, hand near my sidearm. As I got closer, I noticed the driver's door was slightly ajar. I called out again. No answer. I reached the car and pushed the door open. Empty. No keys, no personal items, nothing. The interior was clean, almost too clean, like it had been wiped down. I checked the plate. It didn't match anything in the system. Not stolen, not registered, just not there. I stepped back, trying to process what I was seeing. That's when I noticed the rear-view mirror in this car was also angled downward, pointing at the back seat. I leaned in and looked. Same indentation. Same slight compression in the fabric, like someone had just been sitting there. I backed away slowly, heart starting to race. The radio crackled again. 6:42 p.m., the voice said. I looked at my watch. 9:38 p.m. You missed it, the voice continued. He doesn't wait long. I turned in a full circle, trying to locate the source, but the fog made it impossible. "Who is this?" I shouted. No answer. Just that low hum again. I went back to Claire's car and checked the notebook one more time. There was a new entry. I hadn't seen it before. Same handwriting, same pen. 9:38 p.m. He's here, again. I dropped the notebook. My hands were shaking now. I hadn't written that. No one else had been near the car. I was sure of it. I grabbed my radio. I started backing toward my vehicle. "Dispatch, I'm requesting immediate backup at mile 27. Possible active situation." The line stayed dead. Then, faintly, I heard it. A third car engine turning over. Not mine. Not the empty one beside Claire's. Something else. It started low, then revved slightly, like someone testing the throttle. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it moving. Slow, circling the overlook. Gravel crunching, tires shifting. I turned toward the sound, trying to track it, but it kept moving, just out of sight. always behind the fog. Then it stopped. Silence again. I held my breath. The next sound came from right behind me. A car door opening. I spun around. Claire's car was empty. The other car was empty. But my patrol car, the driver's car, door was open. I was sure I had closed it. I moved toward it slowly, every instinct telling me not to. As I got closer, I saw the interior light was on, and the rearview mirror was angled downward. I didn't want to look, but I did. The back seat wasn't empty. The fabric was compressed, deeper than before, like someone was sitting there right now. I couldn't see them, but the space they occupied was undeniable. The radio on my shoulder crackled one last time. 6:42 p.m., the voice said again. I looked at my watch. It read 6:42 p.m. The same as the tickets, the same as the notebook entries. I don't remember leaving the Overlook after that. The next thing I know, I was back at the station, sitting in my patrol car, engine off, keys in the ignition. The clock on the dash read 9:15 p.m., the same time I had first arrived. Dispatch had no record of my call, no report of Claire's vehicle, no ticket issued. When I went back the next morning with a full team, the Overlook was empty. No cars, no tire marks, nothing. Just smooth gravel and the sound of the ocean. Claire Donnelly is still listed as missing. No sightings, no leads. But sometimes, when I'm on night patrol and I pass mile marker 27, I check the shoulder out of habit, and every now and then, just for a second, I see it through the fog. A car parked perfectly within the lines, engine off, lights dead. And just before it disappears again, I catch a glimpse of the rearview mirror, angled down toward the back seat.